The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Well, good morning, Ph.D. It is that time again. If you see my face, then it must be Friday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. It's time for doctors and scientists. And today we are going to feature Dr. M. Nathaniel Mead. I'm highlighting the M, which I think stands for Mark, but you go by Nathaniel, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us in the show today. What specifically are you going to talk about today?
COVID index is the
Yes.
central focus of what we're going to talk about, but also the context in which that wonderful tool from which it emerged, and I'd like to talk about that context. Yeah.
Exactly. And for those of you that don't know what the COVID index is yet, then you should really check it out. We'll bring it up on the screen. You go to covidindex.science, and this is like it says, the world's largest dynamic directory of censored science and suppressed evidence on COVID-19. And this is a living database of entries that CHD, Children's Health Defense, is now hosting on its website under the Science tab. And Dr. Mead, you had an integral role in the inception of the COVID index, right?
Right. I did. Yes. I was involved in a scientific discussion group that Steve Kirsch organized initially. He invited scientists from all over the world to participate in helping him prepare for his debate process. And that turned into a wonderful opportunity for many scientists and researchers to discuss all of these taboo issues. Much of it was focused on the mRNA products that got reclassified as vaccines. So out of that experience, I met several people who then became part of the COVID index.
Excellent. And the people that really are the designers and the web experts on this are Ursula Conway, who is the past president of the Arizona chapter of Children's Health Defense, and such a wonderful individual, so talented. And then Scott Sutton, who has really championed the COVID index and getting the COVID index into Children's Health Defense. Talk about, the early days. I think that there was so much misinformation, and this was, it was so welcome when the COVID index rolled out, and it actually rolled out before I knew anything about it, and before it became a part of the CHD family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was a strong a feeling of disbelief and anger among so many scientists who were witnessing the suppression of free speech, quite frankly. Being able to speak openly on YouTube or other social media channels, and then having their papers censored, retracted. It happened to me. It happened to many other scientists. So we saw the insanity. It began with seeing the insanity of healthy, asymptomatic people masking and social distancing. That was completely, from a public health perspective, it made no sense whatsoever. And then I appeared on an online health show back in 2021. The show was focused on the immune system and all the things that you could do in your lifestyle that would support the immune system: diet, exercise, stress management. I was told not to mention the words vaccine or vaccination on this show. This was in 2021. The show was a holistically oriented show, but the people behind it said if you mention the words vaccine or vaccination, we could have our show pulled just for doing that. And when I heard that, it really lit a fire under me. And that's when soon after that, I reached out to Steve Kirsch's group. And then not long after that, I was very blessed, very fortunate to have a phone conversation with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. For 33 minutes in, in 2023. I know because I timed it. And it was a discussion about the possibility of doing some research-related writing, since he is so science literate. He had reached out to me. This was before I got involved in writing a series of powerful review papers, starting with the lessons learned paper that got retracted by the journal Curious, the Journal of Medical Science. That paper, I know you know that paper because you and I discussed it before the show. That was retracted 30 days after publication, despite having undergone 2.5 months of intensive review with 8 reviewers and several editors from the Curious staff. And we had already been rejected by another journal prior to that.
Right.
But that was kind of a predatory rejection because we knew that they were biased against this perspective that we were bringing, which was very critical of the mRNA vaccines. So we got to Curious. We went through this 2.5 month process, fully, did all the right things, responded to all the reviewers and the editors. We thought, okay, this is rock solid. We're going to be given some consideration by the scientific community. You go through a process like that. I mean, that's very unusual. Usually you have maybe 2 or 3 reviewers.
Right.
But we had 8 reviewers just for Curious. So if you add the 2 previous reviewers from the other journal, that's 10 reviewers and who had given us feedback on this. But as I said, we got retracted 30 days after. And, we did learn later on, and I can't divulge all the details, but we did learn later on that it was the pharmaceutical industry that pressured the journal to retract it.
It's so unfortunate. I have my own Curious story. I actually tried to publish a paper in Curious by invitation. It was one of the first vax unvax studies that I did with Neil Miller. And not only were we rejected, but I had one reviewer, actually one editor of Curious, invited me to never again submit a manuscript to Curious for the rest of my life. And that's exactly how it was worded. And I thought, boy, that is super harsh. So I actually emailed the chief editor and said, your editors are saying things like this. They need to be a little bit more open-minded. And they did, to their credit, they did apologize. But I've never really seen anything like that. And, 8 peer reviewers, that's unprecedented. Usually it's 2 or 3, maybe for, a top tier journal 4, but that you've published in epidemiology and nutritional epidemiology. Have you seen anything like that before?
No, prior to the COVID era, we really did not see retractions were rare. They would happen if there was obvious fraud or something about the paper that was so egregious that there was no chance of letting it stay out there. But there were the reasons that they gave were completely groundless, and we responded to all of them. We asked if we could have an open forum to debate them, or to do what most journals do, which is allow the criticism to come in from the scientific community and then be able to respond to those criticisms and even make adjustments if needed at that point. But there was nothing fundamentally flawed about our paper. So it was unethical. And, I think Dr. McCullough, who was the senior author on that paper and on subsequent papers with me, he and I were talking recently, and I brought up the term predatory retractions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that some retractions could, in principle, and I'm not sure if this applies to the curious retraction because we don't have enough information, but some retractions could be considered predatory if the journal knew in advance that they were going to retract. You know, if they had the agenda to make the authors, who are, especially in this case, a lot of high profile dissidents, scientific dissidents, to
Right.
make to persecute them, to make them appear that, you know, substandard and not worthy of consideration in future publishing endeavors. So that's a very frightening possibility. But I think, you know, given the way that we've seen retractions happening at such a high pace, a high rate, it's not inconceivable that there is something like that going on.
I would have no doubt. You know, the way that the pharmaceutical industry, you know, suppresses any type of dissension, I would think that they would try to weaponize retraction against
Yeah,
authors that are going against, you know, going against the mainstream narrative. And obviously, you were very prolific and still are a very prolific author. That would be a name, and also Peter McCullough, who's published many papers, you know, also within the COVID era. It makes sense that, you know, they would set you up. The thing that is odd though is 8 reviewers, and then a 30-day retraction
right,
afterwards. It seemed very, for lack of a better term, punitive.
right.
They would do that.
Well, also they, you know, so clearly successful from the standpoint of PR for the journal because they had well over 30,000 downloads in that 30-day period. Prior to that, for the average article published in Curious had 2,170 downloads in a year, in a single
Wow.
year, the average article. So we were, you know, eclipsing their previous track record with all their other papers. And I think it just got too much attention. I did find out, again, I'm not going to give a lot of details, but I did find out that the editors of Curious got a lot of phone calls, a lot of very angry phone calls and messages that I think eventually culminated in the retraction. But what it does is, you know, interestingly, I think it really backfired because for me, it lit a fire under me where I just put in so much energy into conceiving and writing extensive reviews after that and continue to do so. And I'm just very grateful to Dr. McCullough for his trust in me to do that kind of work, and then to bring in collaborators, which is what we continue to do. So I think it backfired in the sense that, you know, censorship is unacceptable in a free society, and I think it was the major impetus for the COVID index. And, you know, in part, it was to vindicate all these courageous, conscientious scientists and professionals who were so wrongly persecuted in the COVID era.
That is such an amazing reason to have, you know, this type of repository, and it is a living repository. There, you know, we're in the process of recruiting volunteers that can help find this information, review this information, help us curate this information, and then put it on the COVID index. You know, without we're doing all the, you know, crossing our T's and dotting our I's regarding copyright and, you know, and things like that. So, you know, it's an ongoing process and it takes a lot of work to do this. If you could bring up the COVID index again, basically it's an authoritative source and it's indexed. Every index is, or every entry is indexed. So, and it's got key terms that we can bring up. So go ahead and enter in a search term. Let's see if it's do an author search. Go ahead and search on the last name Mead, M-E-A-D.
I hope I'm in there.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
there we go. And it's click on the breaking article.
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that what you did here was that you called out curious retraction and the fact that it violated COPE. That's the Committee on Publication Ethics guidelines, that they censored, this particular article, and they censored it, basically because of blowback from the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
And where it says right there, 330,000 views, reads, and downloads in a month. That's incredible. I've had my first Vax Unvax paper that came out in 2020. We had about 220,000 views. However, that was over a year's period of time. So this, people are clamoring for this type of information.
Brian, I just realized I misspoke. I said 30,000. It was 300.
It's 300, exactly, 330,000.
Yeah.
And if you can go up to the three lines, you can see the topics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and pull down the topics and just scroll down those a little bit. So you can see the different things that were talked about during the COVID era. Budesonide, one of the inhaled steroids that was used. I think you can also give that as an oral steroid. Keep on going. Excess mortality, actually a huge issue. Graphene oxide, a putative added to the vaccine that many people saw and confirmed. Hydroxychloroquine suppressed. Lipid nanoparticle, which is a part of the mRNA injection, not a vaccine but an injection, and so many others. And things that weren't talked about in the COVID era, like natural immunity.
Yeah.
I mean, this was all of a sudden, natural immunity was not something that was talked about in relationship to COVID. In fact, there were several articles that came out from the mainstream narrative that said that natural immunity was inferior to immunity based on the COVID shot, which we know is completely preposterous. Where it says want to help, click on that. Okay, we need research associates to volunteer for the COVID index. So if you're out there, you want to make a difference, specifically around the COVID era, go ahead and scroll down and read the Research Associates FAQ. You don't need to click on that. And then if you want to be a research associate and you want to be involved in finding this information, submitting the information to be curated, maybe you want to be one of the curators that evaluates the scientific content that our research associates are submitting, then complete and submit the application form. We love our volunteers at Children's Health Defense. We have many people who volunteer who end up being an integral part of our team. So we invite you to be a part of the COVID index. Okay, enough of the commercial. Let's get back to our guest, Dr. Mead. What was it like? Have you ever experienced anything like retraction in your career before?
No, not even a faint hint of it. It's become so commonplace in a way, at least relative to the frequency in the past, which was, like I said, it was extremely rare. I just want to add something to what you just showed. I mean, most of the COVID index team includes doctors, research scientists, IT specialists. We have experienced professionals from various fields. I think it's great to have people who have some decent amount of scientific literacy to be part of this. And so we are encouraging, those people in particular who have, a fair amount, even solid undergraduate training, to come in and join us. Some of these individuals were motivated to join because they felt they wanted to help the general public, make sense out of this unbelievably immense amount of information. Brian, I did a search a couple days ago just to look at the term COVID-19 and vaccination. And on PubMed, well over 57,000 papers on
Right.
PubMed. And so you look at that and you think, okay, well, that's a gargantuan amount of information. And then within that, a lot was censored. And you can find, even on PubMed, our Curious paper still bears the red label of censorship, which they call retraction. But also, I just want to point out that let's not forget that COVID is still a thing. Okay, as of even this past summer, the COVID mRNA products, these genetic vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna, were still under the emergency use authorization for kids up to 11 years of age. And the EUA, is supposed to be granted for public health emergencies when the benefits outweigh the risks. So that there was that, but also when we look at if you can still find a lot of evidence that COVID-19 is circulating around the world, at least in certain areas. And the World Health Organization has claimed recently that 37 countries in the past 5 or 6 months were reporting more than 10% COVID prevalence, and hospitalizations were increasing in at least half of those countries. So our feeling, and I'm speaking for the McCullough Foundation because we've been discussing this,
Right.
is that the COVID-19 mRNA vaccinations have so predisposed people to getting COVID. I always love saying this because, this is one of the reasons the COVID index is so important. It's a record of things that are so hard to believe, but that have a tremendous amount of scientific support for them. So that point that I just made, that the COVID mRNA vaccinations actually predispose people to getting COVID. And not only that, but we also have evidence that if they got the shots in close proximity to being exposed to the coronavirus, there is evidence that they have much more severe COVID and much more severe adverse events resulting from the shots. So it's the synergy between them. And we have a paper coming out on that was just accepted by Medical Research Archives, which is the official journal of the European Society of Medicine. So that paper was just accepted and it should be published shortly. But my point is that COVID is still very relevant and still very much a part of the current. It's not something of the past, and it will, long COVID and post-vaccine syndromes and other conditions, the long-term adverse events from the shots. These things are all going to continue to cause a great deal of scientific concern and make the COVID index even more valuable.
I want to ask you a question, and I get this question all the time. And so I like to hear other people's answers to it as well. But the whole issue of the vaccine shedding, we've seen now individuals developing antibodies against the spike protein that have never had COVID and have never gotten vaccinated. Even IgM antibodies showing that somehow actively something was being transferred to them. In light of, so much going on, do you think that is this something that you've seen? Is this something that you've studied as well?
Wow, Brian, that's mind blowing what you just said. The shedding issue, I have. My wife is a yoga teacher, and she has a number of friends who are massage therapists. And they talked about how when they would massage people who had been vaccinated, they could immediately tell.
Oh, yeah.
They would start to get, symptoms. They would, neurological symptoms. In one case, someone had a history of tick-borne illness. Lyme disease, and she noticed that all of her Lyme symptoms came back suddenly, and she hadn't been exposed to a tick, So this is an incredibly I think you know a lot more about it than I do. I just know that the shedding is real, and you're right; it deserves to be looked at more carefully. I'm curious as to whether you know anything about if someone has immune weaknesses, are they more predisposed to the adverse or to getting shed upon than somebody who has a relatively strong immune system? Do you have any idea about that?
We need to study that. I was part of a research group called My Cycle Story, and they looked at menstrual issues in bystanders who, this was early on. So these were individuals that didn't get the vaccine, individuals that hadn't had COVID yet, and looked at bystander effect primarily with menstrual irregularities. And one of the things that we saw was a lot of a really super high frequency of decidual cast shedding, where the entire lining of the uterus would come out as one piece. And, historically, we could find only about 19 instances of a decidual cast shed from like the 1900s on to the COVID era. And then within, our small sampling of individuals, we saw 3 times as many in the COVID era in individuals in close proximity of those that were vaccinated. One of the things, so yes, we need to look at those individuals that are compromised. One of the things I wanted you to comment on, and I believe that it's hopefully been shot down in HHS, was the self-amplifying modified messenger RNA technology. I think we need to be, really watching out for that, and any type of maneuvers by big pharma to get something like that FDA approved, or even approved in the European Union.
It seems like an evil technology, if I can use that term. It seems, even beyond being a bioweapon, it seems like there has to be even another term for this, because it seems like an obvious depopulation weapon. That kind of thing, self-amplifying mRNA, you would think that would be something used for eliminating, let's say, a species that was posing a threat to an ecosystem, maybe by some kind of ecological control strategy. But to use it in humans, especially when we already know that the mRNA shots, as we currently know them, the Pfizer Moderna shots, we have no idea how long the mRNA is going to continue to churn out the spike protein, and we have now some data showing it's at least 3 years, 3.2 years. Wow. So why would you want to do something with a self-amplifying mechanism? Because it's already so concerning with that kind of long-term generation. You don't need to self-amplify. I think it's, when you couple it with what you were talking about with the shedding, the whole thing is starting to look, it's been a nightmare for a long time, but the nightmare seems to just continue with these kinds of proposals. And you wonder, how is it possible that something like that could even be considered? I find it just nefarious. Jessica Rose is the expert on the self-amplifying, but I want to go back to something you said, and I think it was when you were introducing the COVID index and you were going through it and showing how it was structured. One of the things that I'm really interested in, and I'm sure you're interested in as well, is how do we get out of the echo chamber? We have all of us, you and I, and so many scientists and educators, health educators, who are, who never bought the narrative and who really have been trying hard to speak to the other side. And my hope is that the COVID index can help with that by being so comprehensive, and also by being um, a mouthpiece for how the deception occurred when the CDC was what I used to call the Centers for Deception and Control. And previously, a lot of doctors and scientists really had a lot of respect for the CDC. In fact, I think that's how they got duped. It was because they believed in it back in 2020. And then when all this crazy policies started to unfold, I think the CDC showed its true colors. But what I'm saying is there's been so much deception, and much of that has occurred as a result of scientific chicanery in the form of flawed methodologies. Many studies, and you know this, you've seen many of them. You mentioned the reproductive system studies. I looked at menstrual studies where you would be told here was the conclusion, that these things are safe and effective. And then you would go back and you look at the actual charts that were reporting the findings of the study, and you see that it's actually reporting something very different. It's actually showing that the Pfizer and Moderna shots were causing incredible amount of menstrual disorder and other kinds of reproductive problems. So the deception has been going on, and it's very hard for many people still today, including my own brothers and sisters. I'm from a large family. I'm second oldest of 8, and wow. My brothers and sisters still believe that the vaccines were beneficial, and they try to pass me information. Of course, now they're using AI to tell them that it was safe and effective, so that's not helpful. It's that level of deception. I hope the COVID index will shed light on it. I think it will, and is. It's a valuable tool for helping to expose what has been a massive disinformation campaign from the beginning.
Absolutely. And it's shining as a beacon on the CHD website. We're very, very fortunate to have it, and to have people like you and Ursula Conway, Scott Sutton, who were involved in the inception. And now Scott is seeing it through as a consultant to CHD. So thank you, Nathaniel, so much for joining us today. Thank you also for the work that you do for the McCullough Foundation. It is so vital that you continue to expose the lies, expose the darkness, and show a brighter path for us. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Brian, also for your courageous work and for continuing to get the truth out. This is a really powerful, searchable database, and I hope many, many people use it in the coming years. Thank you.
You're welcome. COVIDindex.science. Check it out. Tell your friends to check it out. It is right there. If you want to volunteer, this is a great opportunity as well. And everybody have a great Friday.
My name is Brenda Timms.
Okay, this is a story about you taking Pfizer. Talk us through why you took the Pfizer COVID-19 shot in the first place.
When I took the Pfizer COVID vaccine, I had been divorced for 21 years. I had met my soulmate. We had just been married 8 months. Was going to take our honeymoon, so I knew in order for us to travel for the honeymoon, I would probably need the shots, and I took them at work. They were offered at work. I've never had a problem with the flu vaccine. I did not think anything about it. I did get both of my Pfizer vaccines.
See that, everybody? There we go, 2 Pfizer shots there. So that's your COVID-19, as they say, vaccination record card, and you took 2. When
Yes.
did you start to feel ill?
Actually, it did not happen until July the 4th weekend. We were at the lake with our friends, and on that Monday I said, my legs were in excruciating pain. I need to go home. Called the doctor's office. They couldn't get me in until 2 days later with the orthopedic doctor. I did not know what was going on. I was in so much excruciating pain. I was in and out of the hot bathtub constantly. I went to see the orthopedic doctor. he just diagnosed it as my hip area was hurting, sciatic nerve, and gave me gabapentin. I do not take pain pills, but I was in so much pain. I needed relief. It was gabapentin, 600 milligrams, 3 times a day. 2 days later, I was able to return to work. My boss noticed immediately that I was extremely intoxicated under the medications and made me go home. That Saturday, I have a twin sister. She was there with me. I began to notice that I was getting completely dizzy, could not focus, felt like I was going to get sick, had to go to bed. That Sunday morning, my mom came over to check on me, and she said, "Brenda, something's wrong. I don't know if you're having a stroke or what. We need to get you to the ER." My daughter's a nurse. She met us at Jackson General Hospital. By the time I got there, my face was completely drawn on both sides and going down to the point where I could barely speak. They did CT scan, MRI, blood work, showed absolutely nothing. Admitted me in. I laid there for 2.5 days as an inpatient. Excruciating pain on the right side that I kept saying, "Please, I need something, something's going on." Kept giving me hot packs to put on it. They discharged me with a diagnosis of reaction to a sinus cocktail shot that I had received 2 months prior to that. I told the ER doctor he was completely wrong. I knew this had something to do with the vaccine, but at that time, with COVID being so new, I felt like no one was going to be honest with me. I felt it in my heart from the moment something happened, because I was completely healthy, that this had something to do with the vaccine. And he said no, it was adverse reaction to a sinus cocktail. Discharged me. I went home. 2 days later, woke up from a nap in that same excruciating pain. I called my doctor. She said, "Get to our convenient care." The doctor there told my husband, "Get her straight to Vanderbilt." No one in West Tennessee, no doctors around here, has ever dealt with bilateral Bell's palsy. That's what I have. It only happens to 1 in 5 million people. It has taken so much away from me. Trust me, I'm blessed where I am now compared to where I was. I look a lot better. I've came a long way. I go straight to Vanderbilt. They immediately start CT scans, MRIs, testing me for everything humanly possible that would cause Bell's palsy, from Lyme's disease, HIV, Guillain-Barré. They tested me for everything. I had 4. By the 3rd day I was there, I'd already had 4 spinal taps done. The neuro doctor came in with his team of interns, and my face is still in excruciating pain. And I looked at him directly and I said, "Tell me I'm a product of the government. I know that I am. I know the vaccine shot did this to me, because at this point, everything you have tested me for has been negative." And he said, and I swear to God as my witness, he knows this. He looked at me directly and said, "Do not alert the media." I knew right then he knew it as well as I did, but would not say it. It's like the government had them, all doctors, right where they needed them and wanted them in order. They didn't want to lose their jobs if they agreed. That's how I felt. No doctor was going to be honest with me. After being an inpatient for 3.5 weeks, continuous test, arms black and blue, continuously, all over, from all the blood work. I went through 3.5 days of IVG therapy, which is to help heal immune systems that have been compromised. The only thing out of the multitude of tests that was done to me at Vanderbilt Hospital that came up positive out of this was high levels of spike protein, which, if you've studied it like I have, that is a side effect of these vaccines they were done. I'm agitated, upset, my face completely drawn to where I can barely speak when I'm discharged. I was off work for 3 continuous months. My mindset, because I've always been a hard worker, was I needed some type of normalcy, so I needed to get back to work, but I could barely speak. I chose to go to speech therapy 3 times a week, so that really helped me, but not to mention the only by the grace of God, and I have a twin sister who was there for me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this whole 3 months. My husband continued to work during that time. I'm going to say not supportive of everything that I was going through, which I understand some of that. Sometimes men don't know what to do to help out. I went back to work in October of 21. I had only been at work a month. All of my hair, basically all of my hair fell out, and I lost 30 pounds in 1 month. Went back to my doctor. She sent me back to Vanderbilt. I had numerous more tests done, from a PET scan, another MRI, CAT scan, anything that would show anything going on in my body. It showed nothing at all. Nothing. All my tests were negative, except for, at that time, they showed something that came up in my breast that I had to go a week after that and have a biopsy done. Mind you, before I took these vaccines, 6 months prior, I'd had a mammogram done. Nothing. There was nothing in my breast. For the next year, it was continuous tests over and over and over. I have been put through every test man-made, humanly possible, to try to figure out what was going on with me. Everything negative. The head neurosurgeon there, neurologist at Vanderbilt, finally admitted to me, because I had the mindset the whole time, every time I met with a different doctor, I would be straight up and say, I know the vaccine did this to me. I know the Pfizer vaccine did this to me. He finally agreed and said, after all the tests you have been through, I have to agree with you that the vaccine did this. My doctor here in Jackson, Tennessee, has also agreed with me. She has also said that if we ever get to go to court for this, because I know the government has all of the vaccine, COVID vaccine makers, all of them protected to where you cannot sue. But she has said, if I ever get to have my day in court, she will be in court with me that day. It has been nonstop, various just unexplainable things that happened to me during this time, from arms and legs just out of nowhere flopping in the air, making me fall to the floor. Numerous visits back to the ER after I was discharged from Vanderbilt. The medication they put me on 2 days later ended me back up at Jackson General ER. Vanderbilt Hospital doctors said the way it was, my tongue was swelling to the point where I couldn't hardly breathe. My skin, to touch it, did not feel hot, but from the inside out was like 200 degrees. They rushed me by ambulance back to Vanderbilt again. to be told that I was having an allergic reaction to the medication that they gave me for the trigeminal nerve that was completely damaged from laying at Jackson General Hospital with no doctors, no ER doctor or nurses listening to me of the excruciating pain that I was in. It was like they heard me, but they were not listening. An ice pack and a hot pack would take care of it, to be told that that was all from a sinus infection. I knew it was not. I knew in my heart the whole time it was the vaccine. My twin sister, who has stood by me the whole time through all of this, knows everything that I've been through. I have no reason to lie. I have medical records. I have documentation. I have a stack this high from the last 2.5 years that proves everything that I am saying today is the honest to God truth. I was so angry at how my smile has been taken away from me. I would never be able to smile again. How my hair, how my life, how my marriage. I just became divorced on January the 5th. Less than a month ago. But I will not let it define me. I am a good person. I was already insecure about myself. This only adds to it, because I have no control. What I'm angry about, I've had so many medical expenses that not even my husband helped me pay any of those through this. I will continue for the rest of my life to have medical expenses. The government's not there for us people that these vaccines have hurt. What I do not understand and will never understand is how the government provided so much money readily to these hospitals for deaths that they were calling was caused by COVID. You will never convince me, ever, that the majority of those people who died of COVID did not. There was an underlying condition that COVID may have interrupted or affected in their bodies. But this COVID vaccine, I know that the Pfizer vaccine was produced in less than a year's time. The fastest vaccine ever manufactured. It took 4 years for them to come up with the measles vaccine. The way it was pushed down our throats. The doctors told me, I sent my twin sister and my daughter, do not get the vaccine. You share the same DNA. My twin sister did not. My daughter's a nurse, was a nurse for Jackson General Hospital, was made to get it or lose her job. She waited till the very last day. Thank God, the only effects that she had was being in pain and ran a fever for 2 days. I will tell you this, I was so angry and hurt that why me, God? Why me? 1 in 5 million people this happens to. Why did it have to happen to me? I'm a good person. I love people. I love doing things for people. I have a good heart. The only reason I can say that this might have happened is because I had lost my way with God. Since that time, I brought myself back to church. I believe in our God. He has brought me so much peace through this. He's allowed my anger to go away. And I'm so grateful and blessed for that. I'm so thankful for my true friends. Because in times like this, where you're suffering, but they can't begin to understand what you're going through, never will. I have people to say, well, at least you're alive. Yes, I am, and I'm grateful for that every day, after everything I've been through, not knowing the outcome of what was going to happen. I'm very grateful, but I've also lost people that was very close, because for someone to look at me and say, at least you're alive. Yes, I am, but you can't begin or understand what I've gone through, what I will continue to go through. A lady reached out to me after my doctor at Vanderbilt was basically through with me and said there's nothing else we can do for you. A lady reached out to me and told me of a Dr. Prish Patel at Vanderbilt who works with people who have facial skinatosis. So for a year now, every 3 months, I go to Vanderbilt and I see him and I have Botox done. Where a woman my age at 53 would have Botox to get rid of wrinkles, I have Botox to weaken the muscles in my face. I am on continued medication for the rest of my life to control the trigeminal nerve pain. Continued eye problems. I have been having to see an ophthalmologist since this happened. It was continuous at first. What you're seeing here and what you're looking at is not how I feel from the inside out. My eyes constantly have a quiver to them. I'm extremely tired all the time. That's not who I was before. But I'm very grateful, and by God's grace, I'm sitting here telling my story. I'm not trying to convince anyone what they need to do, but what I am saying is do your research. Know what you're getting into. Do not listen to the media. Do not listen what's being pushed or enforced by the government, because the government hasn't been there for me or all these other people. They had that money so readily. Where did it come from? All of a sudden, to me, COVID and all of this was a huge money maker. Huge money maker. That's what it was all about, or controlling population. Where is the government helping us, the people who were affected? Our medical bills, our continued care that we have to have. They're not. We can't do anything at this point. I hope and pray there will be a day that we get our voices heard. I'm appreciative of this opportunity today. I will always be an advocate for vaccines and what they do to people. This is my new life. It's not the end of my story. Know what you're getting into.
Let's bring your sister on, your twin sister. Come sit next to your sister, come on. So this is her twin sister.
This is my twin, Bridget.
Yeah.
Thank God I've had her. But let me tell you what it's done to her in the last 2 years. I even had to talk with her this morning. How she needs to let this anger go. Because even as I was at Vanderbilt Thursday for treatment, she looked at me and she said, you know I would kill someone over you, right? I don't want her to keep hanging on to that anger.
I don't want people making fun of her. You know, I don't.
We're not recognized as twins any longer. And let me show you why. If it wasn't for this wig, making me feel a little bit more like myself every day. Let me take this off. And this is what I truly have to deal with. This is the new me. Thank you to the Pfizer vaccine. This is me trying to smile now. Something I'll never be able to do to my grandchildren. I have one child, and the day she gets married, I worry about looking like the upset mother who's not happy. in her pictures because I cannot smile.
That's her smile.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's her smile.
And I'm only able to do that because of the Botox treatments that I have been receiving for the last year.
Now, you did not take the shot.
I did not.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling fine. You know, I feel fine. I do. I have, when she's down and stuff, or she feels something, we've always had that Twinkie thing where, you know, I feel sick and this and that. And
I stay very nauseated. I'm on several medications for the rest of my life.
well, I just stayed so mad that first year because it's like she was trying to tell them, you know, this and that, but they didn't want to listen to her because no doctor wanted to put their license on the line and say this is it. I've been at every doctor visit with her through every step of this,
and I'm so blessed to have you.
Yes,
Because I would have
we're
felt
blessed.
really alone. I mean, I have mother and my daughter, and they've been wonderful too. But I was really able to make it through this, especially during the first part, because I had my twin sister.
Yeah.
If I hadn't, I would have, because the amount of depression that comes with it is indescribable. I can see where if someone was alone and had no one, where this could lead to a very dark path of maybe making choices to end their life. I could really see that. It's very sad, so I'm very grateful.
Well, she also filed it, was it VAERS?
I filed the VAERS report right after it happened.
Never
A year
heard
later,
nothing from it.
well, a year later, they reached out, wanted to know if I still had problems. I said yes. Permanent bilateral Bell's palsy. Nothing is like, I did my part by filing the report. That's about how it was looked at. I would, if you don't mind handing me that little photo over there, show a picture.
I got some pictures out.
Yeah. This is the last day I smiled. This was me, July 4th weekend. This was the last real smile I had.
So before you took the shot?
Yes, that was the day I had to go home, that afternoon,
Yeah.
when my legs started being in excruciating pain. This was me on my honeymoon. That's what I look like.
So can I just say one thing? We're not going to bash your ex-husband, but you took the shot to go on a honeymoon with him. You get injured, he don't treat you right, from what I'm hearing, and you're now divorced.
Yes. And I waited 21 years to get remarried.
Well, it's his loss.
That's
Thank you, but to hear him tell it, it would have absolutely nothing to do with this. But how, when everything was so great before this happened, I understand we're married only 8 months, I felt like he was not attracted to me physically or sexually. I felt like after immediately losing my hair and the 30 pounds in 1 month, he almost treated me, or I felt like if he were to touch me, something might hurt me. So I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I can understand at first where he was coming from. But after it's a reality, this is how my life is going to be. He's just not affectionate at all. Anything. That's just a picture of me trying to smile.
That was like the different levels your face went through.
Yeah, that
That's
was
in
me
Vanderbilt
at
Hospital.
Vanderbilt Hospital. And that's me on my honeymoon.
See, her
How
mouth has come a long way since then. I
It
mean,
looks like
her
you had a
face,
stroke in that.
right?
Exactly,
her
that's
whole-
what
this
they
side
were
of her
thinking.
face was a lot lower.
Oh
than the
yeah.
other.
So that's why I say the
You come a long way.
Botox has tremendously helped, and I've came a long way from where I was. A really long way.
Yes.
Yes. But
That's why my skin doesn't look as smooth as hers, because I don't get Botox.
But I will tell you this. I just told a coworker of mine yesterday about coming to do this, and she said, but Brenda, I said, no, there's no but. There's no amount of money, ever if this does get to go to court, there is no amount of money that I had rather have. I had rather have my 30 pounds back. I'd rather have my hair back like it was. Never have gone through any of this at all. No amount of money will ever suffice for what I feel like I have lost. So it just won't.
Thank you both for telling this story. You
Thank
being
you.
here and your
Thank you for
support.
letting
Thank
me
you
be
for this
here.
opportunity.
Because it's such an important story.
Yes, it is. And
Thank
this is
you.
the first time she's really got to voice it.
Yes.
So from
It
this 2.5
is.
years, this is a great thing. And I actually live in Nashville now, but I drove down because I was not going to miss this. This is the first time her voice being heard.
Yes.
So I've been at all these doctor's appointments and doctors not listening and wanting to act like we need to put it on the shelf because you don't want to admit it. And I've been through all this pain and stuff with her. So I'm very fortunate for y'all to be here today and let her tell her story.
Absolutely.
So you're
Yes.
going to write your name on the bus
Absolutely. Yes.
and stay in contact with us. We want to see
I will.
Yes.
how you develop. I mean, you look beautiful.
Thank you.
That's why I tell her you're still a beautiful
Very
woman,
beautiful
though.
woman.
Yeah.
I don't feel it though. What you see on the outside is not what I feel on the inside. It never will be. But I know by God's grace, I have a reason for being here. I have a purpose, and I will continue being the same good person that I've always been.
So thank you both.
Thank you.